The executive assistant as a role is a Trojan horse, because you will never have an executive assistant for very long, because you figure out like, oh, you're really good at this thing that now just became your job. My first EA became my director of social. My second EA became my director of automations. My third EA became my CTO, managed all the due diligence of my exit, and is now one of my best friends. What my life's passion and work is you and me and everybody listening can change the world if we start hiring out of emerging nations. Because you take somebody who's dying for an opportunity, like the average Argentinian is making $200 to $300 USD. Imagine paying somebody $900 USD if their average is making $300. You're making 3 times what your peers make. And then think about the entrepreneur that gets that person. Overwhelmed, needs help. Like, it's such a win-win. And then the returns you get if you're willing to actually treat them like real human beings and you know, incentivize them properly, they're amazing. And they're available now.
You had a really nice 8-figure exit. You are now a decamillionaire, which is incredible. Congratulations. I mean, you're part of, I mean, that's like less than 1%, right? So you're like moving into the top like 0.5% of people, which is unbelievable. And then having those dollars that can compound over time, you know, the more money you have, the more it compounds, the greater opportunity it is to create more wealth. But I'd love to talk about the business that you had and sold, and then maybe, actually, there's a bunch of things we can get into. So let's talk about the business that you sold and where that's at. Let's talk about the new business you're starting, and let's talk about what you did with the proceeds of the business and what has worked and what hasn't worked.
I love that. That's great.
So let's start first with the company.
I built the #1 ranked Google Ads agency in the world. My M&A advisor thinks we're the largest Google Ads agency, largest dedicated Google Ads agency. And there's nobody that tracks that. But we got to 200 clients, $100 million in ad spend under management, 80 employees. Most agencies get to about 30 clients, to put it in perspective. So we scaled really well. And we had an unsolicited offer, which was interesting. Actually, I'll say that differently. We had 50 unsolicited offers. People were coming out of the woodwork to buy agencies, and it was because liquidity dried up post-COVID. E-com and SaaS companies started peeling back because they didn't want to sell while liquidity was dry. And so agencies were a recurring revenue model that M&A, pegs, all the people knew how to evaluate, kind of. And they're downstream. They're not as, you know, you want SaaS. And if you can't get SaaS, you want e-com. Yep. And agencies weren't really relevant at all until we were in this weird stalemate environment where sellers didn't want to sell, buyers didn't want to buy. So everybody went to kind of like the little leagues. You know, it's like when the NFL goes on strike and everybody actually watches the XFL. That's what that was. So I had this agency that I do just right place, right time, really. And we're doing $2 million EBIT, and agencies trade at 6 to 8x. I'll let everybody do the math. I'm not allowed to talk about it, but that's all more or less public. And so we sell. And here's what's interesting is I talked to a guy named Ruben Hendel. Shout out to Ruben, by the way, because he was such an amazing advisor to me and never asked for anything in return. Ruben he's one of the top M&A guys for agencies in the world, but he only deals with big companies. He wouldn't deal with me. And Ruben goes, just wait. If you can get to 5 million EBIT, I can get you a 13x. So I'm like, I'm not a math scientist, Justin, but that's $65 million. I went and asked Google, and that was quite a bit more than I was getting. Quite a bit more. And yet, the horizon for agencies looked finicky to me. So I cashed the check. And dude, here's the thing that I'll say to the listeners.
So smart.
I'm so glad. I'm so unbelievably, because $65 million on an Excel spreadsheet, turns out you can't spend that.
Yeah.
And if you don't yet have what John Goodman calls, I think the movie's called The Gambler, but he calls it your fortress of solitude, right? If you don't have just the early stage, like I'm good forever, and you have that opportunity, cash the check. You know what I mean?
That's right.
Take the chips. So super thrilled I did that.
You can't lose taking chips off the table. You can't lose cashing in on a win. And I wish more people would see it versus letting it ride. And if you're going to let it ride, take chips off the table and let a small percentage ride. Yeah. But that is the best play because you don't know what is going to happen with interest rates, what's going to happen with liquidity, what's going to happen with the economy, what's going to happen with the agency model as a whole, what's AI going to do to agencies, right? Like there's just so many unknown variables that if you get a win that sets you up for life, or at least for a good portion of life,
I'm set for life,
just
brother.
take it.
I drive a 40-year-old Honda, Justin. I'm holding on to what I got.
I have seen it.
Yeah, I forgot that.
You
almost
that
got to
lowrider.
drive in it, but
That's right.
there wasn't enough room. I sold my agency with 200 clients.
Prelude. It's a Prelude.
Honda Prelude, 1987 Honda, greatest car ever made. 1987 Honda Prelude. I got it on Bring a Trailer. It's 5-speed manual. It drives like a go-kart. So much fun.
Love it.
When I sold my agency, I had 200 clients. 9 months later, it had 130.
Oh my goodness. Yep. You timed
and it
it.
wasn't the acquiring entity's fault.
Perfect.
AI showed up months later, and all of a sudden people started bringing in a house, bringing on full funnel agencies. Attribution became hard. The model, like a meteor, hit the model, and I got off 4 seconds before it hit. It was crazy. And I didn't know that. I thought I had 3 to 5 years. I kept saying that. I was like, I think I have 3 to 5 years. It turns out I had 6 to 9 months. I had no idea.
Wow.
Just lucky, man. Just luck.
Well, and the other thing about that is it's like there's a grind that's out there to get to where you need to be. And if you put in the time and the hours and you get that to where it needs to be, there's no guarantee it gets better, even though it looks like it could. But like even in like, for example, real estate, or in I'll use my industry because I'm heavily weighted in mobile home parks. The rule of thumb is that you get it to the point that you want to sell it, and then you sell it because the reality is once you have it optimized, the only way that it's likely going to go is back down.
Yeah, the returns are incremental at that point.
So you just work so hard to get it to its peak. You may not know it's its peak. Like in your instance, you thought maybe it might be, maybe it's not, maybe I could get 65 million, but you wisely said, what if this is the peak? Let's take some chips off the table. And I love that. I think that when you get to a point where you've optimized pretty well and you've put in a lot of hard work, get the win. Take the win. Because if it comes crumbling down, you have to do all that hard work over again. If the economy changes, if the market changes, if business in general changes,
well, it's not an if, right? Like
change,
it's always
right.
the flood is always coming.
That's right.
That's always going to happen, especially now. With AI and just how fast things move. It's like, gosh, man, if you have a swing, take it.
Yeah, 100%. Now, what I also see is people like you, founders, entrepreneurs with a big exit. It's fascinating because you're the wealthiest you've ever been. You've got more cash in hand or more cash, digital dollars that you've ever had. But sometimes it's weird, but you can get into this scarcity mindset around money and not having enough and feeling like it's dwindling down or that you're using it to fund your life. And you've got to quickly, my opinion, quickly figure out how to have a portion of it or all of it create cash flow so you're not spending it down. I'm curious what that was like for you. Did you have anything around like feelings of scarcity around money, having a ton, but seeing it maybe dwindle down till you figured out the passive income piece?
I had the benefit of, I had built a couple of businesses. So I built and sold Solutions 8, but I had 2 other businesses that were already churning Mailbox money to like 6 figures. So it wasn't,
that's great.
Like, I could live off of that forever. So it was such a godsend, dude. It was such a blessing because it gave me the chance to like just sit and breathe. So I've got my little bucket of money and I've got my Mailbox money from these other little entities. And it was Brandon Turner, actually. I met Brandon right when I made my exit. Steve Sims introduced us. Do you know Steve?
I know Steve. I had him on the show. He's awesome.
He's
I love
great.
Steve. Hysterical.
He's just, and he's
and
a
a real wow guy. Yeah.
Oh, dude. Yeah, his stories are crazy. You're going to Hong Kong. You should look up Steve. He knows Hong Kong.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
He lived there, I think, for 20 years or something crazy. But Brandon, I made my exit, and Brandon's like, take a year off. Don't do anything. Don't build, don't create, don't whatever. Just take a year off. You can invest, obviously, but don't like start the next business. And thank God I did, because that was my inclination. Like, I'm, if you're good with a hammer, everything's a nail. And I was like, I have this money. I'll just go start another. Bleh. Yep. And instead, I took the year off. I joined your mastermind. And dude, thank God I did that. I have to, again, try not to pander, but everybody, when they know you have money, you become a prey animal. And folks came at me with the most outstanding, and just, I don't know what I'm looking at. Everything looks like it's going to be $1 trillion opportunity, and you're the dumbest human in the person if you don't invest right now today. And it was just like, I loved having permission. That's what you gave me with your blueprint and the 10 rules and then the community. And it was cool to isolate asset classes because like mobile home parks, self-storage, warehouse, that never would have hit my radar. Ever, never, ever, ever, never. You know, everybody's investing in all the stuff that feels and sounds fancy. But that stuff is like, it's so margin thin. So
Yep.
that's where I went. I owned some self-storage facilities. I actually started this is based off of your advice. I don't know if you know this. I started a business with Kevin Report, who I think you know.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, he and I buy and flip. We haven't flipped one yet, but we've been wholesaling self-storage. We have one in North Carolina. That was a really good get. I did another one, dude. I'm really good at lead generation because that's what I did at Solutions 8. So I've generated 250 leads for mobile home parks. But I can't. None of them are good. So I've generated 250 leads, but they're all 100. They're under 100 pads.
Okay.
So if anybody here's listening that knows how to monetize small mobile home parks, I can mint leads, but I can't do anything because I don't know how to value them. Valuation of mobile home parks is so hard, and they're all over the country. And some of them have septic, which I know is bad, and some of them don't. And it's just like that's been a little disparate and a little hard. But so I'm doing okay with mini storage. I'm not doing great with mobile home. And then I went and I bought $3 million worth of single-family homes in Fargo, North Dakota, because Fargo, North Dakota is the most recession-proof city in the country. And I thought to myself, I don't even want returns. I want, and I'm using other people's money, right? So like I have debt on all of them, but I just figured the rents cover the debt service plus. I'm getting the 1% rule. Kyle Reedstrom, our boy, hooked me up. So I'm making something on it, not a lot, but I love knowing that a meteor can hit our economic earth. And Fargo, if you ever look at Fargo, Fargo never dies.
And why? Explain that to people. Why does it never die?
Fargo, yeah. So the Fargo economy is built upon producing oil in a way that nobody else can produce it in quantities that nobody else can produce, and in a region that isn't dependent upon international affairs. So Fargo is and will always be viable for as long as oil is viable. And regardless of what you think about solar and all of those things, like we're going to be oil dependent for the next 1,200 years.
Long time.
We've got some time. So love the Fargo market. Go check out our boy Kyle Reedstrom if you want houses in Fargo, by the way. He's the one who feeds me all my deals. I hope you don't mind me.
No, not at all. I want everyone out here to get a leg up. So that's perfect. And by the way, for those of you that do have an idea on the solve, for the mobile home park leads, here's what I will say. You can make a lot of money in mobile home parks by rolling up portfolios. So the bigger institutions don't want parks that are under 100 pads. But if you've got a portfolio of 500, 1,000, 2,000, 5,000, 10,000, that's when they get interested. So you just have to find, for you, Kasim, you just have to find the people that are willing to buy the smaller pads. But, you know, for those of you listening, that's a great way. Like, that's what I've done. I've built a lot of wealth by rolling up these portfolios. I've gotten crazy offers over the years. Nothing as crazy as what I got, you know, right during and before COVID. But, I mean, even today, you can get incredible pricing on that for, you know, based on what you're buying, a pretty huge multiple from what you're buying to what you can get once you're at scale. Once you're at, let's call it 1,000 plus.
Yeah, I'd love to find a partner there. I can gen up the leads, work the deal, you know, like all that. Somebody who can do the valuation, and we can put the money together. That doesn't feel hard at all. So for whatever that's worth, I'll cut you in on that, Justin. If your podcast produces that person, you're an automatic partner. I think that's a rule.
Love it. Hey, let's produce this. And
not that you need it, but well, you know, you'll be honorary equity holder.
Well, it's fun when I can do stuff with friends, and it's also fun when it's something that I have some good insight on, so I feel like I can be valuable in other ways too.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, I've just learned over the years that if you want to do well, get a whole bunch of people involved, especially people that know what they're doing in that thing or have expertise in some area, because they're going to see things that you don't. And so I've just always learned, be generous with the, you know, who gets a piece of the pie, like default on the generous side of things. And not that the motive is what you get back, that you're going to get back a bigger return, but you just are. If you get the right people in that are just smarter than you, that, you know, combining creative geniuses across many different industries, many different sectors, it's just going to do better than if just you do it.
Yeah. Little pieces of big pies.
That's right.
I
That's
love
right.
I love little pieces of big pies, you know?
Doesn't get better.
Yeah.
That's cool. So tell us about your new business.
It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done entrepreneurially. It's not scalable at all. When I sold Solutions 8, I sold with 80 employees, and they were all international. And I had 40% margins in an industry that aims at 15% because I went and I hired international talent. And all my peers, and dude, actually, the entire Western entrepreneurial world still only outsources grunt work. So like, you know, like, oh yeah, I work with people in the Philippines or India or wherever. And it's like, oh, well, what do they do? Cold calling, data entry, you know, like just garbage. And then it's like, well, how's it going? Not well. And it's like, of course it's not going well. Like, how well would you as a human do if somebody was like, sit in front of this computer for 8 hours and do data entry?
Right.
So I went the other way. And this is my soapbox, dude, so forgive me for getting passionate, but there's as much talent available internationally as there is domestically. But domestically, we can't compete for that talent as small businesses, generally speaking, because Amazon, Google, Microsoft, Apple, Facebook are swallowing, right? Like all the, I don't have a fancy conference room on a high rise with $12 croissants. Even if I could match their salaries, I can't match their benefits or the cachet of working for them. But if I go international, I can pay many multiples what they'd make domestically, which means I get the top tier talent, and I'm the belle of the ball. And so I ended up with these amazing, amazing, amazing humans. And they're the reasons that my businesses are so functional and so good. And so, I was having this conversation actually with the front row dad, Jason Ye. And Jason's like, dude, you have to do this. This is the thing you need to be doing. And so we rolled up a recruiting agency. We find and train talent in Latin America. Argentina and Colombia are my two favorite countries for economic reasons that I can get into if you want. And we train them to be executive assistants. Now, the executive assistant as a role is a Trojan horse, because you will never have an executive assistant for very long, because you figure out like, oh, you're really good at this thing that now just became your job. My first EA became my director of social. My second EA became my director of automations. My third EA became my CTO, managed all the due diligence of my exit, and is now one of my best friends. So the idea behind having an EA is you give them 10 things. They suck miserably at 2. They do 6 okay, and they crush 2. Those 2 just became their job. You roll them out, you get another EA. And I'm not here to push my recruiting agency, to be honest with you, because I'm out of EAs, Justin. I've run. So, but what I want people to know, what my life's passion and work is you and me and everybody listening can change the world if we start hiring out of emerging nations. Because you take somebody who's dying for an opportunity. Like the average Argentinian is making $200 to $300 USD. The average white collar Argentinian is making $200 to $300 USD because their economy is in free fall. Imagine paying somebody $900 USD if their average is making $300. You're making 3 times what your peers make. They work from home because it's a remote work. They work on a flexible schedule. They get meaningful work. Their life changed. Their children's life changed. Their buying power, the community. And then think about the entrepreneur that gets that person. Overwhelmed, needs help, doesn't know where to, you know what I mean? Like, it's such a win-win. It's such a symbiotic win-win. And I'm seeing it now. I'm housing these EAs with these entrepreneurs, and they're like, I don't know what I ever did without these people. And it's just such an unbelievable, it's like outweighted massive leverage returns on a human level. It's so much fun, dude. So if you own a business, or even if you don't own a business, if you're an investor who needs help, whatever it is, research, due diligence, customer service, monitoring things. I have a personal CFO. I hired, he's a college professor in Argentina. He just manages all my investments, and he monitors everything, and he shoots me reports. I'll share the reports with you.
That's
Dude,
awesome.
You can find that talent. He's so smart, Justin. He's so brilliant. He's triple PhD brilliant. It's actually devastatingly sad. He should be a C-level executive, Fortune 500 company. He lost the geographic lottery. So
Right.
I can, and this talent is everywhere: Philippines, South Asia, Eastern Europe, North Africa, it's there, Latin America. There's so many unbelievably talented people, and God forgive me for saying it this way, but they're so cheap. From a salary perspective, what you get, and then the returns you get if you're willing to actually treat them like real human beings and incentivize them properly, because they don't have the opportunity we have. God bless.
right.
Dude, the Western world, what we've been able to produce, how easy it is to be an entrepreneur. I'm a welfare baby, bro. Like my mom, blind single mother on Social Security disability in Albuquerque, New Mexico. My little brother did 6 years in prison on a 4-yard.
Wow.
I've from nothing produced a $250,000. Pat on me, like whatever, pat on the back. But it's the country, right? Like the opportunity that I was given was unbelievable. If my father's from Pakistan. I would be a freaking street rat. So those folks just don't have what we have. But
Right.
you can turn them
Right.
around and you can find people that are like, dude, they're nuclear weapons. They're amazing, and they're available now. So anyway, I'm so sorry, bro. I went a
love
little
that.
far.
I love that. Well, and think about how loyal people are. If you are changing their life, if you're paying them 2 or 3 times what the going rate is, and for you, it's still an amazing deal. So it's like you get to have this impact, and they will forever remember it, which is really cool. You know, I've been working with a team in the Philippines for over 20 years, and then
Wow.
just like what you had said about, you had said that your EAs generally move on to other things. Hopefully you're hiring right. I mean, I like to hire EAs that have executive profiles so that they can move into other roles. But, you know, my very first official EA now runs our entire real estate program and portfolio.
I love
and
that,
she
dude.
is
That's so
killer.
cool.
And then our, you know, another EA that I had now is the operations manager for Lifestyle Investor. And so, yeah, it's really cool to see. And it's actually funny because all my EAs keep getting promoted to other things. So I actually need an EA again.
Keep losing EAs, yeah.
Yes.
That's what you want. That's what you
Yes.
want to constantly run out of it. There should be a flywheel. I have a whole concept there about, you know, they have to find and train your replacement before they move on. But we'll coach together on that offline.
I love it. Well, if you ever, you know, get some people back in the pipeline, let me know, because
Yeah.
I may be your next client or the next person on your wait list.
I love it, dude. Well, we have a wait list. If somebody wants an EA, they can go to ParetoTalent.com. But they don't have to hire from me. Like, this talent is available and accessible. I just make it a little faster and a little easier.
Yeah.
But, dude, go. I love Latin America right now. They're on our time zone. English proficiency's high. Education's high. Depending on the country, Argentina, Colombia, Brazil have really strong infrastructure in terms of internet and power. I like Venezuela, but it gets a little dicey just because it's a little dicey over there.
Yep.
But dude, those aren't the only places. The Philippines, great. India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, all of Eastern Europe right now is, you know, they're having a tough go of it. But there's still really talented, really amazing people. So broaden the international horizons, and I think some really, really awesome stuff can happen.
That's amazing. So what would you say is the next step for people if they're like, hey, this sounds good? And by the way, I did a session in Lifestyle Investor in our mastermind where I just basically said everyone needs an executive assistant, or at least at a minimum a virtual assistant. I don't care what you do for a living. I don't care what your role is, but someone that can help you do things in life that buy your time back. So especially if you have a lot of responsibilities. But I'm just saying everyone, and some of the talent you can hire between $5 and $10 an hour that is very educated if you just have them for, you know, what, a few hours a week. Let's even call it 10 hours a week.
Right.
You know, you're talking about just a few $1,000s a year.
Right.
I mean, who wouldn't offload some things that they're doing for that price? It's a no-brainer at every level, but if you actually have a lot on your plate, you've got to make the shift. So what would be a good next step?
I think what people should start to do is get themselves delegation ready. Generally, when people's EA fails, it's not the EA that fails, it's the person. They're not giving them enough work, or they're not offering the feedback they need to offer. And so I actually got this piece of advice from another podcast host. Start talking to ChatGPT. ChatGPT can do a lot of stuff an EA can do. So be like, hey, ChatGPT, write me this email, do this research, figure this thing out. And once you feel delegation ready, I like what you just said, Justin, like find a part-time EA. You can do that on Freelancer, Upwork, Odesk, Fiverr, wherever. Those places you tend to find the people are a little more entrepreneurial. So I don't like going there for full-time employees, but if this is your first foray, you're going to have more competent talent. And that's the way to dip your toe in. When you're ready for an FTE, it's a bit of a process, you know, job description, get some applications, filter through it. There's a whole framework I have for that I'll give your audience if you want it.
Yeah,
I have a
please.
YouTube video on how to do it.
Yeah, I would love that. And by the way, why should people go to you? What's your differentiation?
Well, the sales pitch is at Pareto Talent, number one, we actually train the EAs. They go through a pretty significant boot camp. They're trained on all the usual suspect tasks, let's say. So inbox management, calendar management, communication, ChatGPT, automation, process management, etc. And we don't just place and walk away like most recruiting agencies. Most recruiting agencies are like, here you go, best of luck to you, God bless. Instead, we continue to manage and train. And so we have what we call an assistants mastermind. All the assistants, we meet weekly. They have a Slack channel. If you ask them to do something they don't know how to do, they're like, does anybody know how to integrate Zapier and Stripe? And then another EA can go, oh, yeah, I've got that. And then as new
That's
AI
cool.
tools or best practices roll out, we're constantly honing and training them. And to the point that you made earlier, if you ever lose your EA or they ascend, we have the system and the process built in so that they can replace themselves and train the replacement as they go. So that's
So
the value
good.
prop. I appreciate
So
you letting
good.
me schlep
Yeah.
that a little bit, Justin.
Well,
Thank you.
yeah, this is I'm your biggest advocate because I wouldn't be where I am had I not found great people to work with that have helped me in this aspect of my life and different roles in business. So, I mean, we utilize this type of talent personally and professionally. So I love the work you're doing. Tell us where we can find more about you.
Kasim.me, Kasim.me. You can follow me on social. You can have my book for free. You can see Pareto talent. I'm trying to do a podcast tour right now. So if anybody has a podcast they want me on or I should be on, I'd love to know about it. But I appreciate you having me on yours, Justin. Thank you.
Heck yeah, this has been awesome. It's always a pleasure talking and hanging. I can't wait till we get to hang out again the next time in person. And I love ending every episode I do with a question for our audience. That question is the same or a variation of it every week, and that is this. What is one step you can take today to move towards passive income and financial freedom and really building the life that you desire? So most people live a life by default. What's one step you can take to live a life by design? Thanks, and we'll catch you next week.